You can say many things about politics at the moment, but certainly none of it is dull. The scene is the highest court in the UK, where an unprecedented 11 of the most senior judges in the country were to decide an issue of historic importance. Did the Parliament have to have a say on the instigation of the UK's exit from the European Union? And the answer, yes, it did.
Today, by a majority of 8-3, the Supreme Court rules that the government cannot trigger Article 50 without an Act of Parliament authorising it to do so.
Given that the government had insisted that it, as the executive, could do what it wanted with the referendum result without consulting Parliament, this had their many critics, accusing the Prime Minister of being lost at sea. Certainly the people who brought the case demanding parliamentary scrutiny saw it as a victory for democracy.
No government can expect to be unanswerable or unchallenged. Parliament alone is sovereign.
For all that, there was a separate judgment siding with the governments at the so-called devolved assemblies. Governments with limited powers in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland could not influence the referendum decision themselves. That immediately prompted Scotland's First Minister to complain her country's rights were again being ignored.
That raises a really fundamental question for Scotland. Are we happy to allow our future to be dictated by a Westminster government with one MP in Scotland, or is it time to take our future into our own hands?
You could argue this is embarrassing for the government, but it certainly isn't disastrous, and they will still pursue their ambition of getting on with Brexit in the coming weeks and months. What it does demonstrate, though, is how badly thought through the referendum was in the first place. If they considered the authority of Parliament when framing the question, it would never have ended up in the Supreme Court. The question now is whether many members of the UK Parliament, who by a majority wanted to remain in the EU before the referendum, will try to oppose the government when they have their chance to debate it.
This will be a straightforward bill. It's not about whether or not the UK should leave the European Union. That decision has already been made by the people of the United Kingdom. We will work with colleagues in both houses to ensure this bill is passed in good time for us to invoke Article 50 by the end of March this year.
So gradually things are being clarified, at least on a timeline. The great unknown is what happens 2 years hence, whether there is any decent deal for the UK with the EU. Parliament will get a vote on that too, whatever it may be. Laurence Lee, Al Jazeera, London.